Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome Josh from the Healing Dudes. He's got an incredible story of having to deal with a bunch of symptoms and what he did to be on the journey of recovery. He's not all the way there, but he's healed significantly. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a mid check-in now, and then when he's fully recovered, we're going to do a part two, so that people can um, learn from this, because it's not just about getting guests that fully recovered. I like getting guests that are through going through the journey, so that other people can see, well, that's what I'm dealing with. Okay, good. That gives people hope. It gives people, a bit of a window of what we're dealing with, right? We're humans. What we really deal with, the real shit show stuff. So without further ado, thanks for coming and being on my
Absolutely. My
show.
pleasure. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
I had nothing but
yes,
great
yes,
things to say
yes,
about
what
it.
you're dealing with, what you've been through, all this stuff.
Yeah. So I had gotten bit by a tick in 2006. So I've had Lyme disease for 17, 18 years. And when I first got sick, I got the typical out of season flu. And, it really started. I was young. I was 26. I'm 44, about to be 45 now. So been dealing with it for a really, really long time. And, got the out of season flu, thought that it went away. I went to a doctor that tested negative. I thought all was great. And I took a job in Raleigh, North Carolina as a senior engineer, was under a ton of stress, was away from my family, was down there by myself, burning the candle at both ends. And I was sitting in my office one day and I felt like the whole world was closing in, and bam, I had my first panic attack and I didn't know what it was. So they carried me out on a stretcher, thought I was dying, the world was closing in. And they gave me a high dose of Ativan when I went to the hospital. And from the moment that I woke up in that hospital bed, my mind just never felt the same. I was in this perpetual state of derealization, depersonalization, constant panic, heart palpitations, heart racing, just fatigue. And, I was an athlete, so I was in great shape. But after that, I felt like I was 90 years old, couldn't get out of bed. And, over that period of the next 2 years, trying to go through work and muscle it through, I moved back to DC, took my house off the market, gave up my dream job, and was literally just surviving, going to work every day, yakking in the parking lot. Not sure I was gonna make it through. This is really before Facebook, so I was trying to find community to find out what's wrong. Going to all these doctors are like, "Oh, you're anxious. Oh, you're overworked." I was working for the federal government, so it was super high stress. And I
Yeah,
began to accept that I didn't have a disease, that I just had an anxiety disorder. And I met this really
right.
good friend online through MySpace of all places. Um, kind of
MySpace. Wow.
kind of dating myself here, and had asked had I ever been tested for Lyme disease, and finally I went and saw a Lyme literate physician, got tested, and then that's where all the treatment started. I did IV antibiotics, all the antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, benzodiazepines, hyperbaric oxygen, IV ozone. I mean, the list goes, bee venom therapy, Cowden protocol, like Meprin, all these different things. I went to go see the top 5 Lyme doctors in the country and just never saw any progress. And eventually got to a point where I was trying to work. I was in my office at a job that was understanding of my condition. And I told him I had to go home early. And I go in my car. I've always driven manual. I couldn't remember how to start my car. About 10 minutes after I figured out how to push the clutch in and do all that, I drove around the parking lot for like 10 minutes and I didn't know how to get home, and I had to call someone to come get me. And it was at that point I was like, man, all right, something's definitely got to shift because I'm really sick. This is about 2009, and I left work and I could not go back. I lost my career. Our house was foreclosed on. We lost our cars. It destroyed my marriage at the time, and I just couldn't do anything but curl up in a ball on the couch. From that point on, I developed a severe agoraphobia. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't go outside. I couldn't go to stores. I would constantly cancel my doctor's appointments and had generally convinced myself that I was dying 24/7. And that's what it felt like. Um,
Yeah.
I'd had some really scary situations where I'd end up in the ICU. I had some reactions to food and then started thinking that I'm
Right.
reacting to all foods. And there's a turnaround point here, which is beautiful. But there's a lot of
Yeah.
years of just really, really struggling with my health. and just not feeling human and not feeling like the father I need to be, the husband I need to be. And most of
Right.
all, I went from being the breadwinner to now my wife is having to go back to school because I physically can't get out of bed to go to work. So dealing with all the
Yep.
guilt and whatnot and the symptoms, and was struggling with severe air hunger and cardiac
Hmm.
issues and just all these different things. And I'm trying all these treatments and I'm going to all these doctors and I'm just like looking for all the answers. And I just could not find anything that would give me any sort of relief. And I just kind of kept going through it. And as I became super ingrained into the Lyme community and became
Oh yeah.
became a figurehead for a while, and I'd lost a really good friend that I talked to every single day from Lyme. She ended up taking her life, and we know,
Oh
unfortunately,
no.
yeah, all too often that tends to be the case. Is people just they're not getting the answers, and there's a positive spin here.
Yep.
So, anyways, as we're kind of shifting around, and I realized that I started a nonprofit, and we began to. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I'm recording. I have 4 kids, so I apologize if we can.
No, it's all good. My dogs are barking. I might check on them
Yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah.
minute too.
When Joe and I record, dude, honestly, we just let it ride. And
Yeah.
because life is life, man. And
Yeah.
anyways, we're going, I'm going through all these things. I lost my friends, and I started this nonprofit with a couple other people where we started challenging the CDC, the IDSA. We're leading these huge
Oh,
protests in front of the IDSA. We're running commercials. We're challenging the conventional Lyme organizations that are hiring celebrities to do PSAs. And I was like, that doesn't work. We need boots on the
right.
ground. Like we need to really be putting pressure to the CDC and IDSA. And I was sick of seeing Lyme patients just pass away. But what I realized in all this is that these chronic illness communities are incredibly toxic and that no one's really helping each other try to get better. Everybody's at each other's throats. They're arguing about treatments. They want to be right.
Yep.
And all the time, no one's getting better. So I removed myself from these communities and I really began to just try and do it by myself. And I came to this mindset. I met an incredible doctor. He didn't help get me, he helped marginally better. I was doing Meyer cocktails and IV vitamin C, but he told me something that really made me think. He's like, dude, you're the medicine. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you want me to do with this? He's
That
like,
can be frustrating
yeah,
when
it
you're
absolutely
told
was.
that.
I didn't want to take responsibility for the role that I was playing in my own illness, and I didn't understand it at the time. And I did have kind of an
Yeah.
awakening moment.
That's a
But I'm
big
going,
can of worms that have to open. It's like, fuck.
yeah,
How? How? It's like, do I have to? It's too much. I don't want to. Right.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I'd heard of people that were healing, but I'm like, their stories they weren't as severe, and I was in a very big victim mindset, and I didn't want to accept that. And I'm going through all this, and things got really dark. I lost my mom; she was my main supporter in all this. She died to
yeah.
cancer, and I switched my diet. I did all the things, I was doing the yoga, I was doing the all this stuff, and just nothing was working. And
Yeah.
I just got to a point where I just accepted, all right, I'm just going to be chronically sick the rest of my life. And, my days are going to look like me going from the couch to the bed, from the bed to the couch. And if I shower, it's a good day, it's a victory. I had
Yeah.
several times where I was in and out of a wheelchair because of POTS. I mean, you asked me to list my symptoms, dude, and it's the list is never exhaustive. I mean, it was any symptom that you could have experienced over chronic illness, I felt like I had. And
Yep.
over there was kind of a shift. I tried to take my life in 2015 because I was over
Hmm.
it. I thank God it didn't, it wasn't something that succeeded. I was on
Yeah.
benzodiazepines. I'm still slowly trying to taper it off. And I think that's why my journey is still, I know a lot of people out there still suffer that have chronic illnesses. Get on it. The doctors don't tell them, what it takes to come off of these medications. And
Yeah.
after that, I kind of had a realization. I was like, you know what? I need to live life. And my youngest son
Yep.
was through my stuff, and he came. And this is a cool story, man. We had an incident where our story went incredibly, insanely viral. And I'm sitting there, and my son's going through my stuff, and he goes through my basketball stuff because I played before I got sick. Was playing him in travel leagues and stuff like that. I played in high school. He's coming across
Nice.
newspaper articles. And I asked him, my son was my best friend. He'd push me around in my wheelchair. My insurance didn't cover home health care. So my 8-year-old son was my caretaker. So I homeschooled him, and he was the one that helped me get into my wheelchair. He was the one that would give me my medications. He would lay on the couch. We would watch Rocky movies and all the movies from the 80s and 90s. So I was like trying to school him, but I was
Oh
trying to
man.
have as much as a relationship with possible because I didn't know how long I was going to be along for. And I went to him one day and I was like, if I could do anything for you, because I can't repay you for what you've done for me, you've become my best friend. What can I do? He's like, I just want to play basketball. So I got him a little hoop, went out in front of the house, and
Yep.
we would go out there, rain, sleet, snow, it didn't matter. And I taught him, I was like, you don't know what tomorrow can happen. I was like, every day is a gift. Like, I'm not able to physically walk right now. I had neuropathy from the waist down. I was pissing down my leg. Doctors couldn't
Yeah.
figure it out. All these crazy things going on in my body. So I said, like, put your whole heart into whatever you do. So this kid went crazy at 8 years old. Next thing you know, like he uploads this video to Instagram and it goes insanely viral, like just insane. Next thing I know, I get a
Yep.
call from the Golden State Warriors, and this is kind of my turning moment. Actually, I'll turn my camera. So there's a jersey up there and a pair of shoes
Oh,
from Steph.
sweet.
So what happened is if you go into YouTube and you type in No Cutler and Steph Curry, there's a video that has 38 million views. It's the biggest video on the Golden State Warriors page and the third largest video on the NBA's page. And what happened is I get a phone call and they're like, we want to fly your son out. We want him to do the halftime show. We want him to meet Steph Curry, which at the time he was the biggest player in the NBA. And I was like, that's fantastic. But I don't leave the house. I'm agoraphobic. I
Ooh.
don't feel well.
Yeah.
So am I going to ruin my son's opportunity for this grand once in a lifetime moment? What am I going to do? So I got on the plane. I thought I was going to die. I thought life was over. And here I am sitting in
Yep.
this sold out arena and watching my son at halftime and watching the arena erupt for this kid. And dude, I'm sobbing, man. And I'm just like, wow. And I see it, and there's all these cameras on it, and he nails it the first time, and the arena erupts for him. And there's all these cameras that follow him backstage, and Steph Curry, signed these shoes to him and created this moment. And we didn't realize how big it was till we started, walking around San Francisco, which was difficult for me because I didn't really walk.
Right.
And all these people are stopping him, asking for his picture. He's all over the news, all over the world at this point. And,
Yeah.
every 5 steps, hey, can we get a picture? Hey, are you Noah Cutler? Can we get a picture? And it was crazy, and it transformed into, ending up on a couple talk shows and sharing our stories on some really large platforms and news stations calling for about a period of 2 weeks. And I realized I was like,
Wow.
man, there's a story in all this. There's something, there's a purpose to this suffering. And for
Yep.
me, Joe tends to be a little more spiritual guy. For me, it kind of
Yep.
I think I brought up that my mom died while she was going through cancer. And I think when we get chronically ill, something shifts in us and we can either become incredibly bitter people or we tend to want to help people. And our heart turns very tender for those that are suffering. And while she was
Yep.
dying, she would go down to the cancer center, but while she was getting chemo and make baskets for all the people that were coming in for the first time at chemo and loving on them. And what I saw is that became my heart. She set the example for me. And I'm like, man, there's got to be something in this. And she kind of directed me towards God. And I was like, God, why am I suffering? And I never got an answer. I never got an answer. But
Yeah.
through this journey, you know, Joe and I have been able to help so many people get their lives back. And this is where things started to really shift for me. I leaned into my faith. I kind of had a spiritual awakening in that sense. And,
Yep.
I watched this movie. It's crazy because a movie is what spawned the whole movement for me. I watched The Shawshank Redemption, and there's a quote in that movie that says, get busy living or get busy dying. And I realized that every single day that I was on the couch, I was dying, that I
Yep.
set an example for my son to lay down and die. And yes, I was disabled, but I didn't realize how much my nervous system played a role in this. And
Right.
Joe and I connected, and I tried DNRS and I tried all these different other programs, and nothing was clicking. And Joe and I known
Yep.
each other in the Lyme community for a long time, and I was bitter towards him because he got better and he moved on. And I'm like, yo, you left your compadre, man. I'm still sick. But he'd gotten COVID and gotten really sick. So we were communicating every single day, and we were both in a really rough place. And we're like, let's hold each other accountable. And eventually he got to the point where he couldn't work. I was like, I got an extra room, dude. Well, it wasn't an extra room. He was staying on my son's bunk bed. And I was like, let's figure
Right.
this out together. Let's get better. I don't want to be sick anymore. So we really started to dive into nervous system regulation and neuroplasticity and diet and calming our nervous systems down. And Joe had done it before, but I hadn't. And every single morning we would lift each other up. We would get up, we would go for a walk.
Right.
Sometimes I could walk to the end of the road and that was it. And, we began meditating and visualizing a future outside of chronic illness. So we would go to this weird closet. My wife thought I was so crazy. We would go to this closet and I
Yeah.
would write on the wall some goals and visions that I had outside of illness that required me to heal to do. And I began to live as though I was healed and began to
Yeah.
speak it. And I began to move my body. And I went from slowly being able to walk, from walking 2 miles in the morning and 2 miles at night, barely being able to stretch, to doing Qigong during the day, and really shifted my perspective because I would wake up inundated with fear and anxiety. And with time, I would shift that to gratitude, and not just, oh, I'm
Yeah.
happy. No, but actually feeling the gratitude for what I had. I'd made it through a journey that I think would break. I think a lot of us that have struggled with chronic illness, it would break a lot of normal people, and a lot of people don't realize what it's
Right.
like to go through. And I began to wake up, and instead of feeling like a victim, to be empowered, to be grateful to be alive. And we began to pursue things. So the Healing Dudes, this class started as scribbling on a closet wall as we were trying to heal. And we're like, dude, let's heal publicly. Let's show the good, the bad, the ugly, because everybody
Right.
paints these rainbows and unicorns and sunshine and all
Right.
this nonsense. That's not healing. Healing's ugly. Healing's getting punched in the face and getting up over and over and over again. And I honestly
Yeah.
compare it to a Rocky film where you see Rocky just getting his face pounded, and he's getting down, he's
Yeah.
getting up, and he's getting pounded.
Rocky Four, my favorite.
Right,
Rocky Four leaves in Russia.
right. And that's
That's what I
exactly.
thought too. I was like, hey, Adrian, let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was basically the mindset. And then what I started to go through, I was like, I'm looking at my healing journey differently. So when we invest in anything, so say you invest in the stock market and you're in a rough time, all you see is the dips. All you see is the dips, losing money
Right.
and stuff like that. But if you pan out and you look at it over a 2-year view or a 5-year view, you see still upwards trajectory. And we know that healing is not linear. So as we're moving through this, both emotionally, physically, spiritually, all these things, like I'm starting to see some really big shifts. I'm getting out. I'm slowly driving
Yep.
again. I'm not at a point where I can work full time, but I'm able to go get my own groceries. I'm able to go to some concerts. I'm able to start living again. And I was bed sick. Like I was
Right.
completely bed sick. So having that shift happen, and while I'm still healing, and I definitely, bro, I'll be honest with you, man, I was about to hit you up today and be like, man, I don't know. I'm 100% in it. And it's because I've overcommitted to things because I've been trying to live life because it's
That's
like,
the hardest when you're going through this journey. Even group coaching things that I would join in, I was like, literally, "Oh, here we go, countdown, here and I would feel like I had to go to the hospital during this group coaching session on Zoom. And
yeah,
it's the hardest. It's suffer. You suffer through because you're dealing with your own shit. You don't have time to fucking pay attention, learn some
yeah,
shit, get involved, express and feel. Oh man, that's the hardest thing. Yeah.
absolutely. And one of the things that Joe and I saw is there was a need for authenticity in the healing community. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people out there that are making a lot of money off people. And
Yeah.
we wanted to shift that. We wanted to be authentic. So in our class, I tell my class when I'm having bad days, but I said, I am no longer this person. I have made so much more progress doing nervous system regulation, diet, movement, all these things, and healing myself, in my faith and all these different parts, and realizing the role that I play in my own suffering, than all the antibiotics, all the IV ozone. And now I treat as holistically as possible now. Like I don't think that medications have done anything for me except make me
Yeah.
worse. And as we point people towards it, I was like, hey, look, there's going to be tough days. So we're authentic. We don't put mountains in the background and say, hey, look, it's going to be a great journey.
Yeah.
No, the journey
Yeah.
sucks. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to make it to the end. I would love for everybody to make it to the end, but you got to have a resolve inside of you, and there has to be a desperation to get better and to realize that you're wanting your healing more than you want to stay sick. And it is uncomfortable. In the beginning, I often tell people that it is going to be more difficult to heal than it is for you to going to stay sick in the very beginning, because you're challenging
Oh
all
yeah.
the norms and all these habits, rituals, and routines that we've developed over the years of being sick. And we live in a constant state of fear and anxiety where we dump cortisol and adrenaline and all these things. And all
Yeah.
we're trying to do is regulate our nervous system, get to homeostasis, and then begin to figure out, all right, where's my body at now? And what we've found is when people are alleviating fear, stress, anxiety, all these things, generally we obsess over our symptoms. I used to obsessively take my blood pressure and, put an oximeter
Oh
on my finger and do all these crazy things. But when I
fuck, I did
let
that all
go,
the time.
Yeah.
I was doing that in secret. I would do it so people didn't see me do it because I was doing it so often. It
Yeah.
was
And
like, that's
it's crazy. And we, I had to let go of these things, and basically this too shall pass. And it always passes. It always passes.
yeah,
And,
it does.
I've had days now. Before, I could never say I've had a good day. I've had good days. I've had, good couple of days where before I could never say I had a good moment. I constantly felt like I was dying. And I'm super
Right.
thankful for that. And there are some days where I'm functional. And I've been in this for about 2 years, about a year and a half of really doing the work, but I've been sick for 18 years. So I know that it's going to take time, that there's a lot of thought
Right.
patterns and neural pathways and stuff that have to be changed. But the proof is in the pudding. I've seen myself make progress. I've seen Joe almost get completely better. We've had people that have come into class and haven't been sick as
Yeah.
long that have made incredible progress. And that is the thing. I want to grab people and be like, hey, you can get better. Like, you are not stuck. You don't have to keep searching for doctors and rabbit holes and all these things. Because I went down the heavy metal rabbit hole. Mold was a big part of my story. I slept in a tent. Completely forgot about that. Like, I had a
Yeah.
tent in the middle of the summer in South Florida because there was mold in the house. But then I began to develop, fears and phobias because I was reading in these groups, and then I was avoiding high histamine foods and all these. And a lot of the fear that I
Right.
generated came from these echo chambers of support groups. So we encourage everybody to get out of those support groups. Like, they're not support groups, they're echo chambers for fear. And now I'm at a place now where I can be a father. I still have days where I struggle, but I am no longer the person that I was that didn't want to live anymore. Like, I want to live. I have goals. I have aspirations. Is healing easy? No, it's definitely not. But it's another quote that I tell people too. No one's coming to save us. No one's going to pull you off the couch. No one's going to motivate you to get up. Like, you've
Right.
got to find something inside of you that picks you up, and pulls you out. And one of the big things when I began to write goals and dreams on the wall, instead of sitting on the couch and scrolling on my phone or playing Xbox or watching Netflix, I now had goals to chase, and it helped me get off the couch. I now had things that I wanted to achieve. And we teach
Right.
people, you need to dream again, and you need to dream big, and then you need to begin to pursue these dreams while you're sick, because it gives you power to get up and to do something in life, instead of just, all I want to do is, I'm obsessing over getting better and getting better and getting better. We don't enjoy the journey. We're trying to get to that final destination, and there's no idea when that destination is going to come. And we put so much pressure on needing to be healed right now that we lose years of our life. And we're also putting more, stress and anxiety on us because I need to be healed right now. And we all know that it doesn't happen at a rapid pace, that, there's a lot of
No. Yeah.
surrender. And it's difficult, man, but I'm grateful to be sitting in front of you and doing the work that Joe and I do. It's a blessing, and literally it came out of the mud, out of the fire, dude. And if I never got as sick as I was, and this is the purpose, I don't feel like we've been able to help the people that we have. So,
Well, it's a gift. You have a purpose. This is your role that you're playing. And what makes it more special is that you're not at the recovery stage yet, like some of these other people might be that are, bringing awareness. With you, it's like, I'm the leader. Come with me. I'm in the trenches with you now, right? I'm feeling what you're feeling now. And then when you get there, that's gonna, everything in the past that you did is gonna amplify it times 1,000. People are gonna see, like, I was with him in the journey. Oh my God, now he's recovered. Like, it's gonna be so much bigger, even, right? And I think that's your
absolutely.
purpose. That's the way to bring the awareness.
I appreciate that. And you said something that we actually say in class a lot. We want people to know that, hey, look, we're not so far removed from this that we forget what it feels like to be in there. And I absolutely in the trenches with you guys, understanding what it's
Yeah.
like to have a tough day. But we can either let those tough days defeat us, or we can make the conscious decision to get up and to pursue life and to pursue healing. And it is an everyday, it's an everyday thing that, it's we hate cancer, or we hate hustle culture, but there has to be some level of pursuing and understanding that it's hard. It'll be the hardest thing that most people do is healing. Like, getting sick was hard. Getting sick, most people can't imagine you lose the greatest gift you never knew you had, but getting
Yeah.
it back isn't the responsibility of doctors. With chronic illness, I don't know of any doctor out there that's getting people that are chronically ill better than 30% of the time. And if they did, they would be
Right.
flooded with patients running in their door. And I think that so
Right.
often in this modern society, we want a quick pill fix to everything. And if you're listening to there's no doctor out there. And some of you guys might have gotten better, and that's great. And I very much believe in the placebo effect. And I believe that there are intelligent doctors out there. But if your doctor isn't telling you that there is work that you have to do on your end, he's not a great doctor, and you probably should look for a new one. If he's just throwing a bunch of medication at you, you're going to stay
They're like
sick.
unicorns. There's some of them that are out there that are open to the mind body space, somewhat, not
Yeah,
fully, but somewhat.
right.
Those are they are amazing. But I can understand why, there's a bit of censorship in this stuff, and they paint it as woo woo on purpose. It's like, no, that's woo woo, and people go, okay, yeah, that's woo woo, right? So we
Yeah,
have a bigger purpose. It's fallen in our lap in a way to,
yeah.
go against the grain. We're going up a mountain in flip flops with all this censorship, all this, there's bigger interest with making billions of dollars. So we got it's a big thing.
Yeah, and you put the nail on the head. This stuff is free, essentially, for lack of, I mean, it's pennies compared to what I spent. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on Lyme treatment and didn't get an ounce better. And there are some great doctors, and this is what's cool. I don't know if Joe's cool with
Yep.
me announcing this, but it's kind of cool. So what we're trying to do is, I'm very much an analytical thinker. Joe would kind of like err more on the woo-woo side. I was an engineer, so I needed to see facts-based evidence,
Right.
stuff like that. And the science behind it's astounding. It really is. And it's not broadcast because it's free. There's really no money to be made off of it. And
Well, they could research it, but then I bet you some of that research will disappear. Or I don't know if you believe in
exactly.
conspiracies, but right, some of this stuff will disappear, or they won't fund it because it's going against the billions of dollars that they're making. Like, fuck that. That's still woo woo.
Yeah.
The rate suppression. Fuck that. Woo woo.
Yeah, exactly. So what Joe and I are planning to do is we have a doctor with 40 years experience, psychologist that
Yep.
understands the mind body realm. Fortunately, he's been in our class, which is awesome. So he's been going through it and 100% agrees with it, does it. So we're going to actually be sometime in the near future running studies, clinical studies on the measurable success of diet, movement, mind body medicine on chronic illness. And we're going to publish it. We're believing
Yeah.
it. We dream big. We know that we're going to get some opposition and stuff like that, but we want people. I think unfortunately people do believe that it's just woo woo, nonsense that there's no science behind it. But like I said, the science behind it's astounding. And if people look for the answers, they'll find them. And there is a
Exactly.
belief component, and it is when you look at the science behind the power of belief and all these different things, it's huge, but it's suppressed because it's so much easier to make billions of dollars off giving medications
Yeah.
to people that aren't going to help people. And that's kind of Joe and I, we take a bold stand in our things. We don't care if we lose followers or whatnot. We're pretty, we stand pretty solid in what we believe, and we won't waver from that just to make people feel more comfortable, because we know that this is absolutely the way. I think that, hundreds of thousands of people with chronic illness could get better if they stayed consistent, they did the work, they showed up for themselves every single day, and they wouldn't have to feel so hopeless. Now, do we know if people get 100% better? I don't know. I'm not one to sit and tell that. We've seen varying levels of healing, and I think that we're always constantly healing as humans. But I've seen people get their lives back, and we've seen people that were bedsick that are now traveling the world. We've seen people that are on disability go back to work full time. We've seen people that were in their 40s and 50s living with their parents, and now they've got their own place. And that's freedom. That's healing. We had a
Yep.
retreat a year ago now, and it was one of the most incredible experiences. We had a bunch of chronically sick people from all over the world. We had someone come from Germany, Canada. We had people come from California all to Florida, and these are all people that hadn't lived their lives. And we saw a 65-year-old man get out in the ocean and swim when he was just terrified of everything. And we saw people that have never been on planes since they've been sick face those
Yep.
fears. And that was the most incredible week of our lives, to see these people that chose to let go of fear and to focus solely on healing. So,
Yeah, that's huge. Big time. Man, there's so many points that I wanted to interrupt, but I wanted to let you keep going. I'm just like, fuck,
yeah,
what is
sorry.
it I
Once
want
I
to
get
talk
going,
about? No, no, it's
yeah.
good because it's flowing. It's flowing. I'm curious, what's your view? Because I have my view about, you know, where do you draw the line on, what you can heal and what's structural, like the TMS world. For me, I think there's no limit, but I know some people, it's a topic that some people, I like some of the doctors, there's some mind body doctors that are like, no, no, this is blah, 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 heart disease, diabetes. You can't, no, you can't. This is certain things that you cannot, it's not TMS. You can't. And for me, I think it's honestly, there's not, I would say 95 to 99% of the things out there you could fully recover from if if you're kind of unplugging from what you believe in, because your
Yeah.
beliefs, they lead you into your, for me, I was forced to dig deep because my 3D reality was lying to me. My symptoms, everything was lying to me. So I had to dig deep, and in a way it was a gift for me to dig deep, and I got to the other side. But
Yeah.
where do you draw the line? What do you
I,
think?
I don't. So I'll tell you a couple stories. First of all, so I have a bullet here. Okay. If I were to get shot with this bullet, what would happen? My body would heal, right? It would go through, all the tissue would heal, all that would heal. So when people challenge this, do I have to tell my body to heal? No, my body knows exactly what it needs to do when given the proper environment. Now, if I'm dysregulated, it's going to take exponentially longer to heal. If I'm in a regulated state, my
Yes.
body's going to heal quicker. So most people would fear this. This would go through me. It would probably hit some organs, but eventually, given the proper environment, it's going to heal. My mom, who did eventually die of lung cancer, her case was considered miraculous. She had stage 4 lung cancer in her lungs, lymph nodes, everything. She was prayed for. We took her for a SPECT scan, and she had zero cancer. It was just gone. And her belief, I believe, is what healed her. I
Right.
believe that there was a supernatural power involved, but I believe ultimately the body, as it was designed, healed itself. Now she did come back because she started smoking again, and I felt like that was a smack in the face to her healing.
Yeah.
We saw that kind of miraculously happen, which was very, very, very cool. So I 100% believe that the body is an incredible healing machine and can come back from anything when given the proper environment. And I believe that this right here, what's between our two ears, plays a large role. If we give into fear, if we don't believe, if we have negative thoughts, all that. I think that the body stores that and the body does it. If you tell your body that it can't heal and if you believe that it can't heal, it's going to do exactly as you're thinking, you know. I think
Right.
that that's impact. But if I constantly sit and believe and I do the supportive things that my body needs, absolutely. I believe that the body is healing. It's crazy that people don't believe it. I break a bone, what's my bone going to do? It's gonna heal. I cut my skin.
Yeah.
So I can't, and the inside of our body is way more miraculous and, mystifying and all these different things. So I can't even imagine what goes on inside of the body when we begin to heal.
Right.
All the, just it's amazing. It's amazing to watch. We've seen firsthand some pretty miraculous stories where people have just gotten their life back and healed pretty quickly. But
Right.
like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with what's up there.
Right. That's why I think I always say work with your doctor, always cover your bases, but at the same
Yeah,
time, if you when you're in a state of fight or flight and your bucket's full, your baseline's at 1,000, and if you decide to do all these tests and if you get a microscope and you look, you're gonna find some shit. But I think all these things are where they're supposed to be because the brain is doing its best to keep you alive under the
yeah,
conditions that under the conditions that we're in this survival state for all these years, right?
right.
Something's got to give. Body keeps the score. We're gonna have symptoms. We're gonna feel like shit. But then, if, for me, I had to stop looking for the labels. I had to stop, you know, looking like if you were to look at your biome, it's not gonna be, pretty. It's gonna be
Right.
unregulated. Shit's gonna be unregulated. So I had to go, you know what? Fuck all this shit. It's actually irrelevant. It's temporary, but at the end of the day, the fix is the same. It's irrelevant. Once you're recovered, everything will regulate itself, right? When you update the alarm system or your limbic system, your nervous system, everything will follow suit. And
Yeah.
it will heal itself. You will create neural pathways by itself. You don't have to micromanage your neural pathways. You don't have to micromanage your fucking your biome or your liver or your kidneys or
Right.
that issue you had. It'll do it all itself. In a way, like you said, we had to get out of our own way, let it do its thing, and support it in a way with the way you think. For me, it was doing my visuals, elevating, changing the way I think in life. I had a bit of a routine that I followed every day, right? When I had the hard days, I I've I labeled it as prime time. This is the time now where I'm gonna send the response to change my programming. And I had to just keep doing it. But the body, followed suit with what I was working on here
Yeah,
by itself. It's
absolutely.
magical.
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch, man. And that's what we tell people is, I am constantly fascinated by just how incredible the human body is. And,
Yep.
I feel like a lot of modern medicine and a lot of modern stressors in society are the reason that people are so chronically sick. I'm not telling people to
Mhm.
not go see a doctor. And, if I have a critical life-threatening issue, I'm going to go see a doctor.
Right.
My wife's a director of nursing. And so like there is that part. But, I no longer believe in taking all these medications for chronic illness and mental illness and stuff like that. I believe
Yeah.
that this makes things so much more worse. And
Oh,
that,
supplements also, all the supplements that I had, ugh,
yeah, dude, I spend
made me
so much
sick.
money on supplements. I believe that we can get the nutrition that we need from food if we're eating right. And
Yeah.
here's the thing is, there's a lot of people out there that they get on their healing journey and now you've got to heal from all the medications that you've put in the body, all the poisons that you've put in there, all the stuff that it's done to the brain. And when I became suicidal, it was because I was on a medication that, one of the side effects was, you're going to be suicidal, but it was supposed to fix that in the depression. So I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer, at least for me, and I don't give out medical advice. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, even though I've been going through this for 18 years of my life. I
Yeah.
feel qualified for myself. I trust myself in it. I now realize that the answer for all this was so simple, not easy to do, but simple in context. And I wish that I'd
Right.
known it at the very beginning. And if I could do anything in my life of suffering with Lyme disease, Bartonella, Babesia, whatever labels that we want to put on it, I was diagnosed with MS and all these different things. And I just don't associate
Yeah.
with those labels anymore. If there was anything like, telling people the same thing that that doctor told me, you're the medicine, like get out of the way, accept what you have to temporarily and believe that you can heal and do the work. And then once you get to a baseline, if you need to feel like need to go see the doctor, by all means, go do what you need to do. But in the
Right. Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah.
the biggest part of the healing that you're going to do is what you have to do. It's not a doctor that can pull you out of it. And that's what becomes so frustrating with seeing all these new people with Lyme disease is they're like, okay, now I got a diagnosis and now I need to go see a Lyme literate physician. And, I'm not going to go.
Mhm.
I've seen people for almost 2 decades taking long courses of antibiotics, and there are very few that get better. And could that be placebo? Absolutely. Could
Yeah.
it be that they had some, slight infection? I do believe that antibiotics in the very beginning of Lyme, if caught
Oh,
early,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
does. I absolutely believe
I think
that.
that's great. Yeah.
But for long-term cases, for people that have been suffering for a long time, historically, and I mean, I sat and I interviewed, a lot of people. I was putting together a paper because I wanted to see who was getting better. This was before we started
Yeah.
the healing. And everyone that I saw was getting better had the same three components: nervous system regulation, diet, and movement, and consistency. That was the biggest one. You got to keep showing
That's
up,
it.
even when you don't feel well, even when it doesn't feel like things are going your way, because you're not going to feel better in the beginning. Like you're not going to see a
Yeah.
shift in 3 days. You're not going to see a shift in 2 weeks. You're not going to see a shift but in about 3 months of
Right.
consistency, 6 months in, you're really going to start seeing some changes in your life. And does that mean you're completely better? No. Like, there's days I wake up and I'm frustrated. I'm like, man, I've been doing this work for so long, but how long did it take me to get sick? How long was I not taking care of my body? All the drugs in high school and stuff like that, and all the terrible food that I ate.
Toxic relationships.
Yeah, toxic
Yeah.
relationship, stress of life, trauma, and then you take an opportunistic virus and it's like a perfect storm and it's like an elevator that's going up through life. And, as you go up through life, you're just
Yeah.
putting more and more things on it. And by the time you get into like your 20s and 30s, man, it's really struggling to get to the top floor. Then you take a virus or infection and you're like, bam, and next thing you know, boom, you drop and you're like,
Okay.
what do I do? And the
Yeah.
first thing we're taught now is we go to see a doctor. And unfortunately, the doctor's not going to help you unload that. Depending on what doctor oh, you need to do this parasite cleanse, or oh, you need to detox from heavy metals, or oh, is
Yeah.
there any mold in your house? And next thing you know, you're like, you don't know what's going on and you're lost. And there has to become a point where we hit the pause button. We're like, what role do I play in my own healing? And I think, unfortunately, there's just not enough of that being taught, and it's not readily available. And there's a lot of people that kind of gatekeep the information. Like all the information that we do to the healing dudes, when we talk on our lives, when we do our Zooms, all over, we everything's out there. The only thing we do is offer support and
Yeah.
we add structure to it. But if anybody came to me and said, "Hey, what's the secret to getting?" Dude, all the information, I'll give it to you. I don't care. I'm not going to gatekeep anything. I don't have some 12
Right.
step program, 12-step thing. Like, we're simply here to just help guide you along the way and give you some accountability and support. And I think that more of that's needed. And there's a lot of people when we speak out of this, like when you get better, like you either go back to the rat race and you get in the wheel and you chase the
Yep.
cheese, or you go out and you help people. And that's kind of been Joe and I's goal, is we're not getting rich off this, and it's not our desire. We want to help people heal. We want to see people get better. And then the effect that happens from that, like they help people heal, and it just keeps kind of
Right.
expanding. People get better, and that's our goal. That's our heart. Sorry, man, I'm long-winded,
Yeah.
bro.
No, it's okay. We bring awareness, right? And then the proof is in the pudding. That's true. With all the stuff we're talking about with the doctors, at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. And for me, it's like Sam Miller said, she's like, we'll just keep doing this. We'll keep building, making pudding, and build that, get the woo woo out of it, and let them do their thing. But that diet itself out by itself, and then let our thing kind of build on itself,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, and what I also wanted to mention was, for me, the problem that I had in this journey, I know a lot of people have this issue, is just because they're feeling symptoms does not mean they're not recovering. Because I had the shitty days at the first year, the second year mark, right? While I was doing all the methods every day, being um, rocky every day, doing my work. I had shifts here and there, but things would get worse. I'd have my setbacks, and I'd feel like shit. And the thing is, symptoms would come, new symptoms, old symptoms would come in and out, in and out. Sensitivities of food, in and out 1,000 times. I'd have two foods that I had in, 20 foods, back to two foods. And it was constantly in and out bullshit. I felt like shit constantly, but
Yeah.
the way I had to learn is that I needed to have these symptoms come in, because there were opportunities for me to update my alarm system, right? For like,
Absolutely.
this is like the finish line over here. I'm doing the work. I'm feeling like shit constantly. This sucks. New symptom, freakouts, blah blah blah. It doesn't mean that the road isn't being paved here, right? It's just that you gotta trust, right? And that comes with speaking to people like you and me, and they see the evidence. Trust me, you'll get there. You're gonna,
Yeah.
right? Just because you feel like shit, even at 2.5 years into the journey, right? It doesn't mean that you're not recovering. So you keep
Yeah.
going, and eventually you'll get to the finish line, and trust that, just because you feel like shit, it's not an indicator that you're not getting there. That's a
Yeah.
huge part.
Absolutely. I think that's so important too. And we echo this, and it's become such a cliche statement, but it's not linear. Like, you're going to experience those days. Those symptoms are still going to be present. Um, and I think that, it's how we respond to the symptoms that ultimately dictates the length of our healing journey. When we respond to those symptoms with fear and feeling like we need to fix them right away, that's when they become more
Yeah.
pronounced. And we're telling our body to trip that alarm system again, that something's wrong. We need to go to the emergency room. And obviously, if there's something that's life-threatening happening to you, I'm not saying don't go to the emergency room, but I am
Right.
saying,
No, of course. Yeah.
we feel these scary sensations, and the first thing that our body wants to do is react in fear. And what we don't realize is I have a flow chart. Is we have the symptom, it sets fear, that fear sets stress, that stress causes anxiety, and all these things
Yeah.
go back into feeding this symptom, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And next thing, now we can't differentiate what's been caused by the actual illness and what's fear and
Right.
anxiety. And that's where the lines really get blurred. And I've had some people that have gotten really, really upset with me. I said, what if fear and stress are causing a large, majority of your symptoms and
Yeah.
sensations? And actually, we did, Joe and I recorded a video yesterday, which we would love to have you on, by the way. We recorded a
Yeah.
YouTube video yesterday, and I went through the symptoms of stress. I pulled them up on ChatGPT, and I compared them with the symptoms of chronic illness, line for line. Every single
Yeah.
symptom is the same. And back when doctors were actually doctors and investigators and would try to find the root cause, instead of just throwing, you go to see a cardiologist, the first two questions he asks you: what's your stress like? What's your
Right.
exercise like? What's your diet like? Now it's like, here's some medicine for your cholesterol. Oh,
Right.
you got high blood pressure. I got a medication for that. Instead of, what are you doing to alleviate stress? And I think that's the biggest part of our journey too, is we tell people, You cannot heal in a stressful environment. You cannot, like, I'll repeat this twice. You cannot heal under stress. It is impossible. So you have to either find a way, because a lot of us might be in relationships, job stress, money stress.
The big one. The relationship stuff, like there's some people where I stopped helping them because I told them you got to get out of that toxic relationship with that narcissist or the cheating and blah blah blah. And they will go in deep denial. They'll double down, go, no, we're working on it. No, it's not so bad. But I'm like, that's not what you said a year ago. And they will lie to themselves because they don't want to open that can of worms. So
Absolutely.
they're willing to have that tiger in that room, and they're wondering why nothing's improving.
Right. And what I tell people in this situation is maybe you can't get out tomorrow, but you have to
Right.
temporarily accept it. Temporarily, that's the key word, and begin to formulate a plan to shift things. Like, okay, I need $3,000 for, my apartment, or maybe you don't have someone you go, and I understand that, but you have to consciously make decisions to get out of it, or you're going to consciously make excuses. But you cannot
Right.
heal when you're under chronic stress. So whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, like, so I have 4 kids, dude, and it's a lot of stress. And
Yeah.
like I said, the fact that they're not even banging on the door, but I realize, obviously, I love my kids. I can't change the fact that I have 4 kids, so I've learned how to accept it. And it's kind of like, I don't remember the monk's name, but it was on the cover of Rage Against the Machine album. Like, there's a monk that's sitting on fire in the middle of it, and he did it as a social justice protest. I can't remember his name, but he sits there and he's on fire, and he's not freaking out, he's not running around, he's not doing anything, but he trained his mind in situations of intense stress. And I mean, there's even guys that'll sit around and they go through a practice where they're getting kicked in the nuts constantly, and they're able to sit there and maintain it. But it shows how powerful the mind is. And that's what we do is, if we're in a stressful situation that we can get out of, we need to get out of it right away. But if we can't get out of it
Yeah.
right away, we need to find a way to accept it and not allow it to trigger the alarm systems in our body. Otherwise, we're going to stay stuck in that constant cycle. Stress and anxiety and fear is going to create symptoms. Symptoms are going to create that. We're going to flare whatever the virus is.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we're running on the rat wheel. And we tell people that, but we are addicted to stress and to ways of life and what feel comfortable, even if that, being comfortable isn't what we really need. Healing is uncomfortable, and getting better is uncomfortable. And I think when people realize that, that's kind of the aha moment for them.
Yeah. For me, it was a I had to stop worrying too much about all the past shit that happened to me that got me here. So, and
Mhm.
I go, you know what, I'm just gonna work on the now alarms, right? Because I'm in a state of fight or flight now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring that baseline down. I'm gonna empty my allostatic loads, keep doing the work. And then if I in the future want to dig for any trauma or want to dig for this or that, then I can do it, but I'll be at a better place to do it instead of adding fanning the fire right now. I'll just relight the fucking cycle. So I had to put some shit on the shelf, work on allowing the craziness to wait to just unfold, let it do its thing, engage, and eventually, when my alarm system was calm, then I would also work with it, whatever the brain sent to me on a platter. Not so much, okay, let's start digging for fucking trauma. Let's start fucking right pouring
Right.
gasoline on the fire. That didn't work for me. I had to let it do its thing, bring down the alarm system, and I say this to many other people, keep it simple. Don't go down all these rabbit holes because you're just bringing the baseline up even more. You're going to have more symptoms. Keep it simple. If you want to go complicated later, if you want to go fuck around with your motherfucker gene or your mitochondria or fucking whatever you want to do it later.
Right. You're right on, man. Because what happens is when, we're sick and we start opening 10,000 cans of worms, the worms coming over, you're like, I can't handle this.
Right.
And at the end of the day, what I've found is a regulated nervous system tends to fix a lot of that stuff. Obviously
Yes.
you can't change your genetics, but I feel like what happened is all these cans of worms, because there's money to be made for one, and two,
Yeah.
a doctor or even integrative doctors, they can't figure out what's wrong with you. So we're going to start going down these other paths. I've never seen anybody that's went and let me do the MTHFR stuff and let me do the methylation. Never seen anybody that's got their life back. I've never seen, oh, I
Me
eliminated
either.
cold and I took these supplements and I got better, or I've never seen anybody that had Lyme disease and I did this and I got better. No, you got it. Like you said, you address the fear, you address the stress, you address the dysregulation in your nervous system. And I hate the term
Yeah.
neuroplasticity. Everybody's using it now and it's a catchphrase, but it's
Yes.
overcomplicated. And like I said earlier on, the concept of healing is very simple. It's the work that's hard. And you've got to get to a point where either you're going to challenge, your belief system and be uncomfortable for a little bit. We say this often, you get comfortable with being uncomfortable and understanding that, your symptoms aren't going to kill you. As long as your doctors said, hey, look, you're not dying tomorrow, that you can get up and you need to choose to live life. You can't heal from your couch. You can't heal spending your entire day scrolling on your phone. It requires work. And I think that a lot of people, including myself back in the day, weren't willing to do that work. And there has to be, like I said earlier on, a level of desperation. And you've got to be so fed up with the ill
Yes.
that you get to
You
a
need
point.
that fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need
So,
trembling fear, because that's what's going to make you stay on the path. Not if you're like, meh, yeah, fuck it, I'll do it next year maybe. Right?
yeah.
I had to be scared shitless, and that's when I all of a sudden I was disciplined. I was Mr. Fucking yeah, I'm gonna fucking like I was really, you know,
Right.
um, being religious about it, and that's what got me to the other side. That's how I became an Olympian when it came to this journey. If I was half-assing it, I wouldn't have. I would just stayed on the couch and or in bed, right?
Yep. And
Right?
that's, just if there's people watching this thinking that you can heal from the couch, I have to start slow. And I get it. I have empathy because I was there, but you have to get up every single day. We have someone in our class. She's been amazing. Um, she couldn't get out of bed till 10:30, and she had to have someone come over and get her out. Now she's still symptomatic. She's been with us for about 4 months, and it takes time. But she's gone to
Yeah.
concerts, car shows. She's living life, and that's where we begin to experience joy. And I think what happens is, this is the example I use in our class. When we get sick, we hit a wall and life stops. Like it comes to a screeching halt. And the only thing that we focus on is, how do I feel better? And rightfully so. Nobody wants to wake up in the morning and feel sick. No one says, yeah, I want to wake up and feel like I got hit by a bus. But there has to become, like I said, a level of acceptance to the symptoms. They're not going to change right away. And beginning to understand that there is the work, like that you have to accept them, and realizing, all right, I can't get better just sitting around the house. Like I need to go out and live life. You can't, a lot of people have severe anxiety and agoraphobia. I'm not sure if that's something that you dealt with, like the anxiety
Oh
part
yeah.
of it. But
The OCD
that's,
looping thoughts were my favorite thing.
yeah, I mean, and it literally can be cripple you. You got to go to Target, you got to go to Walmart, you got to go to the grocery store, you got to go to the mall, and you do it and you expose yourself to it, and you don't fight the fear, you surrender to it, and you remind yourself you're going to be all right. And see, this is kind of the thing, and I get a lot of kickback for this. I don't think that you need a ton of tools to get through it. I think that when you use all these different tools, you're reaffirming to your body, hey, look, yeah, there's something wrong. We got to use all these. You surrender. You just
Yeah.
let it go. You stop sending
And you're not
messages.
really facing it, right? When
Yeah,
people do this because they want to get rid of that. It's like, why get rid of it? Face it, feel the discomfort, because that's how
yeah.
you change it.
That's actually good, dude. I've never heard anybody say that. By using these tools to ease it, and I'm all right with stepping into the process. I guess some people can do it. For me, I had to raw dog it, man. I was sick of dealing with
Oh
it.
yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I literally, I tell this story often. I couldn't go into stores, so I went into Target, and the bright lights and all that. Like, dude, I would have my hoodie up over my head, sunglasses on, and I looked
Yeah.
like a weirdo. Like I looked like I was gonna rob the place. And I went and I sat
Yeah.
in the back of Target, Indian style, in the middle of the floor. And I had to tell myself that I
Yeah.
wasn't going to die. I just surrendered. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here. And I'd run out of stores thousands of times, like
Oh yeah.
thousands of times. And it is literally that surrendering. That was my aha moment when I began to, all right, whatever you need to do. We've gone through this 1,000 times. We've felt these symptoms, thousands of
Yeah.
times. I've been to the hospital, yes, but it hasn't killed me. I'm not going to die today. I need to surrender to
Right.
it, accept it, calm my nervous system down, and do this over and over and over and over and
Yes.
over and over and over. And then eventually, it's kind of like this, our neural pathways, we our automatic thinking goes one way. We automatically go down,
Right.
from there. But when we start to form these new neural pathways, it's like we're taking the detour. And when we're driving on the neural pathways, we know, you've driven somewhere and you got there and you don't remember the drive, like because you've just done it so many
Right.
times. That's that automatic thinking. That's how we result. But when we take a detour, we're hyper vigilant. We're worried about a deer hopping off. We're going around the mountain curve. We don't want to go off. And we see all these things, but eventually it becomes the same way. The more that we take that route and the more that we prefer that route and the less that we fear it,
Yeah.
we go back into autopilot and we're able to go there subconsciously. And we can listen to a podcast and shift through the gears and not even think about the drive anymore. And that's eventually what happens. And, being mindful, obviously, that one quick thing, and we're back on that path because it's still
Yep.
back there. But I think that the more that we do it, the more that we do it, there's no secret. It's not like complex. It's not like
Right.
rocket science. It's literally so simple that a kid could be taught it. But I think that we make it so complex because of the fear of symptoms.
Yep. For me, it was the things that I feared became my target. Like you said earlier, get uncomfortable. So they became my target. I went towards it. I exposed myself to it. And just because I exposed myself to something does not mean it's a weapon to get rid of feeling like shit. I felt like shit because I exposed myself to it. I'd open
Right,
that door, it's screaming at me, but I had to do that 1,000 times to change the association to update the alarm system from a 10 to a 5 to a 3 to a 1, right? And
mm,
then it became neutral. It became Aaron Neville came meh, right? And
right,
then I could move forward. And that's what I had to do. I had to expose myself and think of them as targets. So what am I going to? I'm going to go to my targets. I'm going to get uncomfortable today. Let's get out there and recalibrate. Let's really get
right.
uncomfortable. And you're going to feel like shit. You have to. You have to feel like shit. And eventually the alarms turn off, and then you start to feel better. But when you do
Absolutely.
it, you're not going to like it. But trust that in time it will regulate. That's the
Yeah.
that's the hard part.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody that listens, like, talk to the people that are getting better, talk to the people that are healing, and
Yes.
they'll tell you that the work is absolutely worth it, that your consistency will pay off. I've never met anybody that was consistent in this line of work that did not get better to some degree or that are not healing. Never. Dude, never.
Right.
I've never met someone and said, "Yeah, I invested a year and a half into nervous system regulation, moving my body and eating healthy, and I regret it." No, everybody has
I
gotten,
call bullshit. When those people say that, I'm like, did you stick to it? Did you
yeah, were
do
you
10?
consistent? Do the work?
Yeah,
Yeah,
were you doing 10 different programs with 18 different coaches?
yeah,
Yeah? How'd you know? Like, yeah. So it sounds
yeah.
because you start seeing patterns of people that don't do it are the
Yeah,
ones that are not
yeah,
moving
they
forward.
hop from here to there, and I fully believe that any of them work, but as different for us, the biggest thing is accountability, community. Like,
Yes.
if I take either one of us and I put us in a room of homeless, non-motivated guys, and we're there for 3 months, we're probably going to become homeless and non-motivated. But if I take us
Yeah.
and put us in a room of successful people and we're sitting and those are our conversations, and now we're going to be there in the same way. I think it is with that. So when we surround ourselves with other people that are healing, that other people that are getting better, we're constantly absorbing stories instead of listening to people that are sick. We heal quicker. But if we choose to keep going back into these communities, we keep listening and commiserating in our illness and stuff like that, I think that it keeps us sick. And that's what we want people to know is, yeah, there's programs out there. They're great. You can get to them. But I think that you do coaching as well. Like when you have someone individually that cares
Yep.
about your journey and that wants to see you get better, I think that it makes all the difference in the world. And it is. It's a difficult journey to navigate alone. And I think that having a coach or even doing it in a community is absolutely the way. When I got DNRS, and I'm not downing DNRS, but I got all these DVDs in the mail, and I'm like, oh, this is great. What am I going to do? I was putting them in the player, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Is that when
yeah,
Annie Hopper had her hair like this still? Oh, she
yeah,
still has
yeah.
her hair
And,
like
and
that,
she
I
had
think.
she had she had the huge football shoulder pads on and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I'm like, stop, 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 stop. And I'm hopping around on
Right.
the and I'm just
Stop,
like,
stop, and doing the Macarena around a
yeah,
circle,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
It's like what I realize is when I'm saying stop, 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 I'm reaffirming what's going on there. And what I realize is it's not stop, stop, stop. It's surrender. It's surrender.
Right.
When I say stop, stop, stop to my brain, that means, all right, there's something there. We need to go at combat. We're
Right.
sending these messages. When I realize there's surrender and I'm letting my body know and my brain know that there's nothing there to fear, that it's an
Right. The
incorrect
classic,
response.
what you resist persists, right? So allow it. Let it do its
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So a lot of our thinking kind of goes the opposite direction from what a lot of these programs and stuff think. And we just try to
Yep.
simplify it and make it as easy as possible for people. And listen, everybody that comes into class, we love them like their family. And we know that
Yeah.
it's a difficult journey and that it's ugly and it's nasty and that there's a lot of people out there that just don't want to live anymore. If we're honest, like it's so
Yep.
taboo. but it gets to that level. It's a disgusting journey, but there is hope. People can get better. It takes
Yeah.
time. It's hard work, but surround yourself with people that are on the same mission and journey as you, and it becomes easier. I'm a firm believer in the company that you keep is going to determine the outcome of your journey. So
Yep, for sure. That's what I had to do. It depends, because you need that. Your brain always looking for evidence, and I needed to have the 5 people that I sometimes would bug and ask them, "Did you have this?" Okay, yeah, that's normal. Just keep going. Ah, thank you. Compared to going down the rabbit holes in the Facebook group, so I needed to have that evidence, kind of on the sidelines to keep me focused and keep me going. So
right,
huge.
absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, man. This was a lot of thousand golden nuggets that people are going to appreciate. Um, so I'd like to have you back in whenever when I come back, have you back,
Yeah,
and then I'll put all the links down in the description so people can get a hold of you guys and watch your Instagram stuff and your YouTube stuff, and contact you for any coaching. So thanks again. This was an awesome interview. This has been great.
absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, man. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you. Have a good day, man.
So,